everyone. Welcome to She's Good. My name is Julia.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Mary Beth.
And today, this is She's Good, by the way. The three of us make up a podcast called She's Good, where we talk about, learning about, and supporting women's sports. We are, in fact, three friends that...
Debatable.
Allegedly.
Just kidding.
No,
I feel like that was aimed at me.
She looked directly into your eyes, which is just to say she looked at the camera.
Yeah. I could tell because she knew she told me where my square was earlier. So
Exactly.
No, it says shifted. It shifted.
Oh, because our guests turned off their video and back on again, and that shifts things. Yeah. Well, our manager and producer and our benefactors told us that we had to say that we are friends. But
or else we wouldn't get the money they're giving us. So.
Exactly, and it's so
the
much.
Friendship money is a lot, so we must.
Women get paid only 70-something% of what men do, but it's we're good with whatever we get for this podcast. It's
honestly
so much.
Yeah. In fact, I asked them to give me less because it's so much money.
It's so much. It's what do you do?
Just give me less.
Yeah. We're not greedy.
I know. And we could give it to charities or something like that, but we don't. But anyway, okay, so a little bit of a spoiler. I did say that we had a guest, and well, it's a special one. And I've said each of our guests so far are special, but this is extra special because first off, it's the first man of the pod. What? You thought you were listening to a women's podcast? You came here specifically for that, and we just have a man on the podcast? Oh my god. But it's a special male because it's not in fact the first sibling of the podcast, but it is the first brother of the podcast.
Oh.
And, well, we'll get to all the rest of his credentials once we introduce him, because his name is Ben Schroeder. Welcome, Ben!
Yay!
Thank you. It is my honor to be here. I'm a big fan of the show, and I made sure they're giving me 25% more money than you guys for appearing.
Yeah. Yeah, you did suggest that, and we were like,
and it makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We were that's cool.
I said, look, this is a women's sports podcast. The one thing you need is a male to talk about things. So I better be getting my money for it.
Well,
exactly.
You've earned it.
We actually ended up giving our cut of each podcast episode. We gave ours to Ben.
Yeah, we've been saving it all in a jar to specifically give to you today.
That was my condition for appearing on the show.
Perfect.
Yeah, and Ben has a good manager as well. It's his big Great Dane called Harvey.
Yes, he's very responsible, and most of the money I'll be earning for the show will go into his dog food. So
it'll pay for a kernel of dog food.
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
But joking aside, I just do want to say that this is not going to be mansplaining because we're asking you to explain it to us. So it's just going to be explaining.
Yes.
So yeah, we're very excited because we have a lot of questions about a lot of things.
I'm sure I'll have some answers, and the ones I don't, I'll say them confidently, so it sounds like I know what I'm talking about.
Good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we do.
Where it comes from.
Yeah,
it's absolutely what we do. So
yeah, we've spent our whole time.
As Ben Franklin said, a lie stated confidently is better than a truth stated meekly.
There we go. And see, I believe you that that's a Ben Franklin quote, even though I don't know if it's true.
You don't know if it's true.
We will never know.
There's no way to know.
There's no actual way.
You can't ask him.
Much like most of this podcast, there's no actual way to know what the facts are.
Yeah, that's what I feel. So I just state everything I say confidently and move on.
Exactly.
Secret to success.
Yeah.
You have been a long-awaited guest in the many months that we've been doing this podcast because you not only are a sports connoisseur and have played sports your whole life, which we'll get to, but you're also you're an avid women's sports supporter, and you often are the one like Katie telling me when games are.
That is true. I particularly women's soccer and English women's soccer, especially in the last couple of years, I've tried to follow pretty closely, as I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, Arsenal have always been my favorite team, and so I've made sure to let you know every time they're on, and especially with all the American women playing in the Super League this year, it's been that much more fun to watch.
Yeah, it's been fun, and they've gained like a lot of American supporters because of that.
Yeah, it's been nice too because it's been an excuse for us to like figure out how to watch those games because they don't make it super easy. I mean, it could be a lot harder, but you got to wake up at like 7:30 on a Sunday. Sometimes it's like, ugh. Like,
I'm used to that. I've been doing that for because I've been watching the men for so long that I've always used it as an excuse to drink in the morning. It doesn't count as being an alcoholic if there's soccer on, so you can have a beer.
That's a good point. That's
another life principle to live by, I feel.
Exactly.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's partly what, like, you've been an Arsenal fan and in turn an English and European soccer fan for a long time, which means you are well versed in like all of the leagues and everything going on. And one of the things that we literally have zero idea about is how all of these leagues are a thing. And is it a league or is it a tournament?
Yes.
And is it a team or is it a tournament? Are they a human or are they dancer? And
exactly.
These are all my questions too, like the list.
Yes. And for people who are just kind of like joining and like getting into like sports or women's sports in general, like, yes, we have been watching a lot more like European soccer since the US migrated over there in Corona times. And it's just like we like Katie mentioned, it's hard to follow and hard to know, like, Man City and Man U will play each other in one tournament on Sunday, and then they will play each other again on Wednesday and like called something different. And so we're basically like, we called you on the pod for a lot of reasons, but this is one. Like, can you explain all of this?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, first of all, I'll start by saying I get confused by it sometimes as well. And it's
good.
Yeah, it can be especially confusing with the women's competitions because the format has changed seemingly every season. But basically, the bread and butter is the league, the domestic league. So each country that has teams basically has their own league. So in England, for example, they have the Women's Super League is like the top tier.
WSL.
WSL, yep. And like France, they'll have the Ligue 1, I think it is called, and then Spain, La Liga, all those sorts of things. Those are all the top tiers. And so each country will usually have their system divided into different tiers. So every team that's under the Football Association, which is the English governing body, basically, is like basically structured into leagues. So the WSL is the top league. Below that is the Championship, which is confusing because that's the second division, and that's I know. And it gets weirder because the third division is called like the Women's National Division 1. And the same way in the men's, it's completely stupid. But basically
then within, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I did it anyway. But like within those different leagues, is it true that they can like, if they're good enough, they can be like bumped up to the next level?
Yes. So that's called promotion and relegation. So basically,
I learned that from Ted Lasso.
Nice. I was gonna. They made a joke about how funny it is that the Championship is the second division and how confusing that is because it's same in the men's. Okay. But basically, this is one of the things they've changed, like the kind of the format of it. But I think it's now the top two teams in each women's league get promoted to the next division up, and the bottom two teams get relegated to the next division down. And the WSL.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So if you finish last or second to last in the men's league, I think it's the bottom three, you get relegated. And in the lower divisions, if you finish in the top 3, and they have there's different stuff within that, but basically for simplicity's sake, if you finish in the top 3, you get promoted to the next division up. So it's sort of like how we have minor leagues in like American sports and baseball. If the minor leagues, like the winners, were to get promoted to the major leagues.
Okay.
And then if you in the WSL, there's obviously no promotion because there's no divisions above it. But the top, I remember if it's the top 2, I think in England play in the next year's Champions League, but that's a whole different competition. You play it alongside we'll get into that because that's kind of
because that is confusing.
Yes, so, we've been wondering about it.
Yes, so the easiest way to understand it is in the league, it's just head to head, and it's just standings. The teams with the best record at the end of the season is the champion, and then it's ordered like that. And every team plays every other team twice, once home and once away. And so it's very fair. You play each, there's no like kind of, all the scheduling is done as fairly as possible. Basically, Manchester United plays Chelsea once at Manchester United, once at Chelsea. Every other team does the same thing. And at the end of the season, the team with the best record is the champion.
Okay.
Got it.
So yeah, so that's basically how the domestic league works. And that's the same in every country.
Oh, same in every country. So that was my question. Like Spain would have La Liga, and then they have ones underneath that too?
Correct. Yeah. So all the European leagues work in that way.
That's
okay,
convenient.
so you know how like that is convenient. Maybe we should adopt something like that.
Yeah, maybe we should follow everything that the rest of the world does sometimes.
Yeah. Do they then have like so if somebody wins the league, like has the best record, but do they also have like a championship game or playoffs in any way? Because I know like with the NWSL, they have like the Shield winner, like whoever has the best record, and then they have like whoever wins the championship. Those are different like awards or whatever.
So it's sort of like that, except the difference is those are completely separate competitions that really have nothing to do with how your performance in the league. Uh-huh. So there's the league, the champion is just the champion, and that's probably the most prestigious trophy you can win in for like English teams besides the Champions League, which is a whole different thing. But the other tournaments there's the FA Cup and then the Continental Cup.
Okay, the Conti Cup, is that what that is?
Conti Cup, yeah. Okay. Or the League Cup. Conti Cup, Continental Cup, League Cup, all names for the same thing. So basically, those are the two most confusing things because they're two totally separate tournaments for English teams. They each are a different trophy, but they're slight differences. The difference is the league or the FA Cup is every team in the English FA. So there's like 300 teams. There's like 5 tiers of leagues. Like 300 teams. Anybody is allowed to enter if you're within the FA. So no matter how low of like a minor league team you are, if you're a football association team, you compete in the FA Cup, and it's just a straight knockout tournament.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from you is the 3 of us, and you can be our coach, are going to move to England. Yeah. We're going to start ourselves a team. We'll find some people. We'll get it going. And we can then compete in this tournament if we can get the FA to let us be associated.
That's right.
Okay.
You have to be accepted into one of their leagues, but it's a lot of them are pretty low level.
I think we can do it. I think we can talk them into it. We've been trained in improv, so we can do it.
You're 2/3 of the way there. Again, just making it up as you go along, and if you play with confidence, that's the most important thing.
I'm gonna do anything. I'm gonna base our team philosophy off of everything Benjamin Franklin has taught us, and we're gonna be the
electricity and confidence.
Yes, confidence
and bifocals.
Our team will be called. That's our motto.
It sounds like we got our banner. If you translate into Latin, we can put it on the patch.
We'll get Mitch to make scarves for us.
Franklin United. How about that?
I'm into it. I'm writing it down.
Electricity, confidence, bifocals.
There we go. So yeah, and that's the FA Cup. One of the reasons the FA Cup is so cool is you get like literally Sunday league teams that are just local teams that meet at the bar or the pub they call it in England, obviously, and they go play on Sundays. And those teams, if they're in a organized league, they get into the FA Cup.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with that.
Yeah.
And there could be like an upset maybe.
There always are every single year. And the way they structure it usually is like the really low level teams enter at the beginning of the tournament. And they all play each other. And then like WSL teams won't enter until the later rounds. Okay. So teams like lower level teams, there's always somebody who like goes on a run, and you end up having, like Arsenal playing whoever,
Franklin United.
Yeah, Franklin United, exactly. And this is deep into the weeds, but when the really low level teams play, if they go play at Arsenal, for example, I think it works this way on the women's side. I know it does on the men's, but they split the ticket revenue 50-50. And so if you play, like, so on the men's side, obviously if they're drawing 60,000 people at Manchester United, they split that ticket revenue, and that's amazing. Like 2 years worth of budget for like a, low level team.
Shit.
So,
and then they also get to play in that stadium.
Right. And they always get, a lot of, they'll get beat like 6-0, but it'll be the greatest day of their season because they get to play in front of, and sometimes they'll pull a huge upset, and it's just a really, really cool tournament.
This sounds like my ticket out of this. This sounds like my ticket out of this basement, everybody.
It is time. It is time.
Yes.
I've seen the Looney Tunes, so I have some tricks up my sleeve, and I know we can get past a few teams.
Yeah, I did recently watch an Animaniacs episode where they like competed in the Olympics. Yeah. And it was like weightlifting, or like it was like against this big bodybuilder, and they had some tricks too that were really interesting, and I think maybe we could take some notes from that as well.
If I had to guess, I would say Wacko won some shit. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they all placed. They all definitely placed. And then gave the money to the bodybuilder because he was like crying or something.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not going to do that if I win.
No. We're keeping that money to do more podcast episodes.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah.
We're going to give it to Ben when we're done.
Yeah, we're going to.
Yes. I was going to say. I was waiting. I was going to let you come to that conclusion on your own. But
Harvey already called me and told me we had to.
I wouldn't put it past
him. Couch.
But that sounds so cool to me. Like, I know football is like soccer. Football. What did I say? Soccer. I'm talking about. I was like, oh, I got it wrong. But I know like football is very like, it's everything over there. So that just sounds, the culture of that sounds just like it would be a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's really cool just even to follow kind of from far away. And
yeah,
it would be like in America they have like the Open Cup, which is sort of similar. Like that, I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and the local team Grand Rapids FC is like literally the lowest level minor league team, but they 1 year competed in the Open Cup, and that you end up playing like the same kind of idea, but it's just not as they don't broadcast games on TV. It's not as prestigious.
Yeah, right.
So I think the FA Cup, the men's FA Cup is like the oldest competition in England or maybe the world. I don't know, something like that. But it's been going on for, 200 years or something like that.
That's what I was going to ask is like, what's the equivalent in the US? It seems like, okay, we have that for the women, NWSL, for the men, MLS. But then I guess there are like,
there's like the USL, right? Is that like associated with the MLS in any way?
Yep. Yeah. So now they have like USL 1, USL 2, and then NPSL is that's where Grand Rapids FC is now, I believe.
Okay, cool.
Although they're moving up to USL 2 next year, supposedly. Anyway, but yeah, it's the same sort of idea where there's a bunch of different tiers, and then there's a lot fewer teams though in the US. Like in England, they'll have like every small town has their own team. And so they all will end up going into the competition.
Okay. We should shout out GRFC real quick. 1, that you played for them, and 2, that our favorite Bethany Balser also did.
She certainly did. Okay. Saying I played for them is a loose way to put it. I was mostly on the training / reserve squad. And
did you have a jersey?
That counts.
I had a jersey, and I sat on the bench for 3 games towards the end of the season. So
that sounds like
there you go. You played.
My claim to fame. But yes,
you know what? There are some excellent goalies keepers that sit on the bench because you can only have one.
Yeah,
that is true. That is true. And in my case, I was fourth string, I think, for most of the season. So yeah, it was there were only 3 ahead of me. But yes, Bethany had a much more distinguished career for GRFC. They won the national championship in their inaugural season, and she scored literally like hat tricks in like 4 games in a row on the road to the final. She was absolutely ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Dar.
Of course, now she is where she is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scoring at the national level, which is insane.
Yep. So that's anyway, that's the FA Cup. And that's the probably the most prestigious domestic knockout tournament. The other one, the Continental Cup, which again they also call the League Cup. That's like the lowest level competition, or the one they kind of care about the least generally.
Okay.
So the League Cup, they only the top 2 divisions play. Those 2 teams are in the League Cup. So I think it's like 22 or 23 teams. So what are there, like 11 teams in the WSL, and then the championship? Those are the only teams that play in the League Cup, and they get divided into groups of 4, or maybe there's like 8 groups, and some might have more than 4. But that's like the World Cup, where like the top 2 in each group advance to the quarterfinals, and then they play knockout from there. Gotcha. And so again, that's its own competition, and then like leagues, divisions 3 and 4, like the women's national league or whatever they call it, and they play each other in their own League Cup, and they call it something different because it's got a different sponsor. But the Conti Cup, again, that's just the top 2 leagues, and they have a knockout tournament playing each other.
Okay.
Yeah. So
see, you are like making things make so much sense, and I have like
maybe it's researched.
I have tried so hard to understand some of this stuff, and I'm just like, why are you doing this to me? Like, why can't you just like, I'm like, can someone just like write an article that explains everything? Like, I have looked, and I'm just like, I don't get it. So this is so helpful.
Part of the problem is that it changes every year. And so the Conti Cup in particular has gone from like group stage to straight knockout tournament and then back again. So earlier this year, I was like, my wife and I took a RV trip up into northern Michigan. And so I was like kind of just following games on my phone, and I saw that Arsenal had lost to Chelsea. And at first I thought it was in the league. And so I was like, oh crap, that's a big loss. And then I found out it was in the Conti Cup, and I was like, okay, well that means they're out of the Conti Cup. And then I found out that it's the group stage, so they only it's just a loss in the group stage. So I have such a hard time following it at times. But yeah, it's basically those are the three main English trophies are the league, the FA Cup, and then the Conti Cup.
Okay.
And then the Champions League that's like basically the every league in Europe, the winner. And if the league is prestigious enough, the second team will qualify for the following season's Champions League. So basically, the top 2 teams in the WSL this year will play in next year's Champions League.
But that's a tournament, right? It's not an actual league.
Okay.
Right, and it's structured the same way as the Conti Cup or the World Cup, and it goes on kind of the whole year round. But basically, yeah, it's again group stage, and then the top teams in the group make it to the knockout rounds.
So you might not necessarily, like if you make the Champions League tournament because you won the previous year, you might not even have the same players.
Exactly.
Because they could have like switched teams.
Yes, exactly.
Wait, so how does that work then?
You just play with the team you have. You just play with the team you have, yeah. So
wow, okay.
So think of it. You sort of think of it as like, if you guys played soccer, youth soccer in America, you know how you always have like your league, and then you travel on the weekends to go to tournaments, and those tournaments are totally separate cups or whatever, and they're their own thing. And then the league is its own championship, and then like we had the state cup, which is just a knockout tournament. So they're all separate. The only difference in England is that they kind of go year round. They all kind of like coincide with each other time wise. But yeah, it's the same. You play with whatever team you have currently, and so the Champions League, you could win the league with one. So like, if Manchester United win the league this year, and Tobin Heath and Kristen Press go back to the U.S., they'll be in the Champions League next year without those players. They'll have a whole different team.
Interesting.
Got it. And that's how you end up with Man City and Man U playing themselves against each other on Sunday and on Wednesday.
Exactly.
Okay.
So usually the way it works is the league games will be on the weekends and the cup games will be in midweek. Not always, but that's generally how it works.
And then
it seems like. Go ahead, Jules.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say, it seems like the schedule is like less crazy than like the NWSL schedule, where they might play like 2 games a week. It seems a little like more relaxed in that it's just like spread out over the year longer. Is that true?
They do with the women's league in particular. The men, they especially around like Christmas, they always pack it in because there's more teams. There's more teams. Here's Harvey. Hello, buddy.
Hi,
Harvey. He's here for his money.
I know. Don't worry. We're gonna pay you. We'll pay you at the end.
You'll get your 20%, Harvey.
Exactly. He's like 20%. I thought we agreed on 25. So what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the women, because there are a lot fewer teams, the games they don't have to pack as many games into the schedule, so it is a lot more spread out. And I think, but it's a longer season. The NWSL season's a lot shorter. And so the English league and the European leagues basically run like the school year. So it's August until, almost June. And so they have a lot more time to pack in the same number of games.
Got it.
Makes sense.
Sorry,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to ask, well, then is UEFA just like another version? Isn't there a cup UEFA?
So that's the UEFA is the one who they organize the Champions League. So they're
an organization. They're like
CONCACAF, right?
Yes,
Got
exactly.
It. Okay.
Exactly.
Europe.
And the Football Association in England, so the FA is like the domestic. That's like the English version, and then UEFA is like the Europe wide.
Okay, so my background is starting to make sense for people who are watching. You will see. So Lyon, we know, won this, right? It was them.
They win it. They win it every year.
Yeah, they win constantly.
Yeah, They're kind of. Oh, go ahead.
They're like a dynasty.
You go. They're like the Man U. The Yankees.
Better than that. Yeah, probably closer to Real Madrid in recent times anyway. But they're much more dominant than Real Madrid. But yeah, they it used to be like a couple of Swedish teams would dominate. Actually, the only English team in women's to ever win it is Arsenal, and they won it in like 2007 or 2008. But they have.
Meatable was just a kid.
I don't even know if she was born yet, honestly. She's so young, but yeah.
God, I hope she was.
She and Katie still in the womb.
Yeah.
But actually, so their best player then was Kelly Smith, who is one of the commentators on the FA player, or is she on NBC Sports? I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. But she's one of the color commentators for the WSL.
Okay,
cool.
Yep.
So, what is it about Arsenal that you like? Is it that it's like a gun, or
that's a good question.
Can you explain? Are you like, what's your feelings about the Second Amendment? And also,
I don't know. My wife's a psychologist. I'll have to ask if there's some deeper meaning there. But no, actually, it's pretty simple. I started watching in like 1998, and that was the U.S. The 1998 World Cup, and the U.S. team was terrible. So I started following the Dutch national team. And because Julia and our dad's side is Dutch, and they had a guy called Dennis Bergkamp, who was basically the Viviana Miedema of his day, and he played for Arsenal, and so that was like I basically started following him and became an Arsenal fan that way, and then just became hooked over the years, and that became my team.
I remember Bergkamp posters up in either the room or
very nice.
Totally.
Julia can corroborate that.
Yeah.
Okay, but like, how do you start following this league that's like, halfway across the world in 2000? Like,
it was impossible. Actually, so the funny thing was, so you couldn't really, you could sort of follow them online. They didn't broadcast. They might have broadcast games if you had a special cable package or special channel, which we did not have. But the way that I sort of connected with them was with video games, and that was, I think, really common for people in our generation. Julia knows who we're talking about. Yeah, so I had like FIFA video games, and so I would play with Arsenal, and that's how I learned who all the players were, and like how all the that is honestly how I learned how all the competitions and how the leagues worked, because you start playing, you play like a season with Arsenal, and you're like, what is this like FA Cup thing that how is this different from the league? And that's so you kind of learn that way how everything works. And then, so it sort of became familiar with them that way. And then much later, like the late 2000s, they started to broadcast games on TV. And then the last 10 years, basically every game is broadcast on TV from England now. So that's kind of how it evolved.
So it's like a long, like brewing support that you have. You're not just like Arsenal, cool. Like you've been, yeah.
If it was recent, I would probably not be an Arsenal fan because they've been so bad recently. But
I was gonna say, I see a lot of tweets that are like, Arsenal like loves to break my heart. Like
now it's just the guns
that's my street cred. Is I can prove how loyal I am because the team's so bad that I'm not a front runner.
Yeah. But have you ever like been over there and watched a game?
Yeah, so twice. So I studied abroad in Spain, and when I was in college, I was there for 6 months and went to London at one point and watched a game in 2008. And 2008. And then just 2 years ago in 2018, Maggie and I, my wife and I, went back she's got a friend in Scotland, and we stopped in London and watched the game then. And so
that's so cool.
2 very cold days and 2 very boring games, but it was a lot of fun to be there, and yeah, it was just super cool. But now I have to go back and see a women's game, which I've never gotten to do.
Okay, we'll all go.
I was just gonna say, let's do it.
When we're over there for our tournament that we're gonna be in, we'll catch some beforehand. So
Franklin United is going. Yeah,
it's touring. Oh, I love that. Wait, so then what do you attribute like popularity of like Americans watching soccer, and especially watching like European soccer in like the more recent decades?
Honestly, I think a big part of it was the kind of what I just described, the evolution from video games to it being broadcast on TV, because like, my generation, that's what, when we were growing up, everybody played FIFA. That was just, it's soccer for some reason, just so fun to play on video games because, there's more goals than in real life, and it's just, you play quick games, and it's the things that Americans find boring about soccer were really fun. And so that sort of created that like emotional attachment to different teams, because everybody just picks a team and starts playing with them. And then once you actually start playing with them and then you see them on TV and you're like, I know who all these players are, I know who this other team is, and I know how these competitions work. That sort of like laid the groundwork for that fandom. And it's funny because just recently they started including women in the FIFA video games.
Yeah.
And which was a long time coming, obviously, but I think that was a hugely important thing, because it's like now you can play with Megan Rapinoe and Alex Morgan and Kristen Press and all these people that you saw on TV, and then you can turn around and go like watch them play for their own teams. And the fact that plus the fact that more games are being broadcast on TV now is a huge thing for like the popularity of women's sports, because it just creates that kind of emotional connection.
Yeah.
The way my brain related to this when you were describing that is that I was like, well, you're right, because if I like found out that all the Mario characters were real, I would watch NASCAR. Like I would be very into it. So I do subscribe to this theory.
Oh, Yoshi's on. We gotta go.
Yeah.
Go on.
She's riding today, guys.
Did you see when Toad hit that banana? No.
Oh my God.
Actually, if you could ride over a banana peel and like actually, I would watch that.
Yeah.
I too would watch NASCAR.
Yeah, and the red shells and everything.
Yeah.
And no one would get hurt. I don't want anyone to get hurt. Unless
except for Wario. I don't know. Wario, sometimes I really wanted to hurt him.
Yeah. Same. I hated him. Oh my God. Especially playing against him. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny though, because I think there's sort of a persistent myth about, why certain sports are popular and people will talk about, soccer, there's no it's too boring or too slow or they're myths about women's sports in particular about how, the difference in athleticism. And I think that's pretty ridiculous because if you just compare it to college sports in the US, for me, for example, I watch a lot of college football, American football, but I don't watch any NFL. And obviously the college football, it's the guys aren't as athletic. It's a less skillful level of gameplay theoretically, but it's so much more fun because it's got the, just the rivalries and the local kind of connection. And it just, for me, that means that it has less to do with, any kind of athletic skill or gameplay at all. It's about your emotional connection to the team. And so that's why I think recently with, women's sports in particular, people as the NWSL starts to establish itself as a league and people kind of create these attachments with Portland Thorns, OL Reign, and they, get used to the rivalries and those kinds of things develop. That's what makes sports popular, as opposed to any kind of anything.
The drama.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
Oh my God, yeah, that's so true. Just let them stick around long enough to and I also think the development of social media and just media in general covering nice mug.
Thanks. It was a gift from Julia, by the way.
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh,
heck yeah.
Personal.
We are a gun family. Okay.
I knew
it.
It says Second Amendment. Come and get them on the other side. No, it actually says wake up, drink coffee, beat Tottenham.
Okay, so
you
it's
want America? Come and get it.
Tottenham is my guns.
Tottenham is Arsenal's local rivals. They're
okay.
Yeah. So they're both North London teams, 3 miles from each other.
Oh, okay.
Is the men's Tottenham team good? Because I know the women's team struggles a little bit.
No comment.
Okay.
That's a whole different story. They have historically been not great, but they've been quite good recently. And
you're I can't say because I can't shit talk my teams. So.
I know. It's a temporary it's a temporary thing.
Oh man. Yeah, and okay, my brain's going 800 different places, but Tottenham women is of course where Alex Morgan played in her little stint, and that sounded reductive, but there's sort of short stints this year. Anyway, it was just announced that she's coming back to the US, no longer playing with the Spurs, and there was also an article saying that she basically got Tottenham to change their training facility to some kind of, I don't want to say dumpy, but less good than the men's, to now training full time at the men's really nice facility, and that was sort of her major legacy there. That was very cool.
Then her time there is worth it.
That's totally
really, honestly, that's been such a cool movement the last couple of years, and I think belatedly a lot of clubs have gone in that direction. And I think it was Megan Rapinoe was making some comments disparaging how long it took Manchester United to invest in their women's team, and she's absolutely right.
Yep.
And it's true, and not to be a homer here, but Arsenal has been one of the teams that have for a long time invested a lot in their women's team, and it's why they've been historically the best team. Chelsea.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's why you look at who's won the most, and they've won 8 titles or something, ridiculous.
Yeah. It's no coincidence that, Chelsea and Arsenal and actually a couple other teams like Birmingham, who don't have a very good men's team, but they put a lot of resources into their women's team. And they've all been the most successful. And so and recently some teams have caught up, and teams like Manchester City, their owners are a bunch of war criminals, so with no morals at all. So if they're investing in their women's team, it's not out of the goodness of their hearts. It's because it's a good business investment. And so it's clearly a, viable commercial vehicle in addition to being, just a good thing for the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I feel like there's so much like background stuff about like the English teams that I don't know. Like that little aside that because I'm like, I would love a Sam Mewis jersey, but I'm like, I don't know enough about these teams to feel comfortable, like, you know what I mean?
Throwing my support.
Loud. Yeah. Like, I'm what does that stand for? I don't know.
City's the big one. City's the big one you want to avoid because they're owned by the Emirates government, and basically they use the club as a tool for soft power. That's a whole different argument. And
oh my goodness!
But it's basically they use it for like because their jerseys say like Etihad Airways on it.
Yeah.
And Arsenal is no exception. They're sponsored by Fly Emirates airline, and so that's a lot of kind of governments with human rights violation problems have used English and European soccer teams to whitewash their image, which is how Qatar
and now
got
NWSL team too.
Is
Washington
that right?
Spirit. Yeah.
Oh, really?
They're doing like I forget how it's even worded, but like they're going over to like. Okay, I don't have enough information on the tip of my tongue about where they're going.
I think they're in Qatar, aren't they? Is it Qatar?
Qatar. It's Qatar.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah. So they're going like a. I want not peacekeeping mission. That's the wrong word, but like a cultural exchange with Qatar, and people are pissed about it. So yeah.
It's a big problem, and that's how Qatar is where the men's World Cup is in 2022, and there are huge issues with that. But that's kind of they use that sort of thing because they know people have emotional attachments, and idiots like me will wear things that say Emirates on them because I love Arsenal and that's their sponsor, and so then people associate Emirates with Arsenal instead of Manchester City or whoever instead of human rights abuses.
I mean, I'm literally wearing a jersey that says like Jersey Mike Subs on the back. So.
I don't know if they're owned by war criminals, but I think you might be safe.
Right. Yeah. But we wear this stuff.
Jimmy John's is a problem. Yeah. That is true.
Ben, oh, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say there's a minor league baseball stadium in Utica, which is like a podunk city about an hour from Detroit that hosts like a tiny independent baseball team, and it's called Jimmy John Stadium, and so it's just funny to imagine people boycotting
Utica frickin' wood.
Yeah.
Utica.
Oh man, God. All I was gonna say is when you first brought that whole point to my attention, Ben, I go, this is why you need to be supporting the NWSL and women's leagues on Facebook. And then I immediately texted you and I was like, oh my God, this is probably so beside the point. And then sure enough, frickin' we have like the Utah Royals kind of go up in flames from their like bullshit. The OL Reign, like French guy who was just like misogynist, sexist, that's the same thing.
You can just say French.
Yeah.
Oh God, the France stands are going to come for us.
You can cut that part
stands,
out.
The French stands and the Jimmy John stands we're on their list.
Mm-hmm. We're very conscious of all of the potential stands that could come for us. This could get to anybody. Yeah, we're in full support of Qatar and all they do. So just so we get that on the board.
But it is hard to find like an ethically an ethical support. I don't know. It's just the world we live in. Yeah. Capitalism.
Yep. Totally.
And I think that's why it's kind of a fool's errand to even try, because and the other problem is the more popular a league or a team or anything gets, the more money it's going to make and the more it's going to attract, terrible people. So it's you can't avoid it. You see in the WNBA with like, Kelly Loeffler owning a team. I mean,
yep.
It's if there's money to be made, terrible people are going to be attracted to it. So there's no Arsenal are owned by one of the like Walmart heirs to one of their families.
It's just
Walton. Great.
Yeah. You can't, and he's not even like, he had nothing to do with actually, developing the business. He was just, born into the family.
Right. Yeah.
So there's no use even trying to moralize over it at this point. But City is kind of an extreme example.
I think a lot of what helps me sometimes is like not, is more like the supporters groups, because I feel like they do a lot of good. I mean, I'm just speaking from like the NWSL perspective, because I don't really know like what other supporters groups do, but they seem to try to do a lot of good, like within the communities and like giving back and raising money for things and stuff like that. So I don't know. That's kind of like been helpful.
That is a good point. And in the fall series, NWSL fall series, they like, were competing for basically like, I don't know, like $20,000 or something, and each team chose like a charity or whatever, like local business or something to support. And so, all the money that whatever team who did win,
Portland.
So like all the money that Portland won for winning, of course, went to like, I think it was like this Black-owned business or someone chose the ACLU, like it. So yeah, things like that are, I mean, let's just hope that kind of stuff keeps up.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is such a good point you made, Katie, too, because it's unique to, in America, those kind of supporters groups are, I think, unique to soccer. Like they don't have them in baseball or basketball or anything like that that I know of, but it's a tradition that I think that got carried over from England and from Europe, but it's really, really kind of well done and well organized because it's a more tight knit community in the US. Just because like MLS and NWSL have smaller fan bases, and so they, the people who are really devoted to the team are very committed, and they do a ton of good stuff in the community. So that's a good way to connect.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Last thing I want to say on like weird money in leagues is Ben brought an article to our attention, and just like an issue in general, the history of English women's soccer is so odd too, that Ben, you can like talk on this, but basically women's
soccer, it's like almost
England,
like a league of their own situation.
That's absolutely what I thought about when I read that article.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wartime. Yeah, go ahead.
And I was just gonna say, I mean, I literally learned about this on like Thursday. So with like 2 days ago. And so I was kind of reading about the history of just English women's soccer and how the competitions have evolved. And I learned that in like the early 1900s, women's soccer was as popular as men's soccer, and for a time was more popular and would draw like bigger crowds and make more money and everything. And they, like right after World War I, women's soccer got to be so popular that the FA, the Football Association, the English governing body, effectively shut them down. And it was the way they structured it was that they banned women from playing in any stadium owned by the FA, which is essentially every large stadium in England, which pretty much killed any chance at a professional league. And they gave some stupid reason for it, like it was harmful to women's bodies or something.
Yeah, or like it would mess with fertility or like something like that. Yeah,
exactly what you'd expect from men in the early 1900s. And so and that for like 40 years or something like that until the 1960s there was no women's professional league, and then they finally lifted the ban in the 1960s. But even like at that point, it was, men's leagues that had the chance to develop over 40 years. And so women, it was a long time even after that before they started investing in women's soccer again. But really, it was just such an eye opener, and it sort of puts the lie to a lot of myths about what we were talking about earlier, the myths about how popular women's sports can be, and how, I think there's a lot of myths in the popular consciousness about how women's soccer can never be as, women shouldn't get paid as much because women's soccer can never be as popular as men's. Whereas in reality, it's more about investing in leagues and investing in teams and stadiums and everything. That's what makes a difference. And it's sort of like it's like in the Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's that sort of thing. If you build the stadiums, if you put the games on TV, if you put them in video games, like that's how you're going to attract fans, and that's how you build the popularity of the sport.
Yeah. It's crazy because I think often about the fact that like the US women's national team has been like so dominant on the national level for a long time. And so much of that is just about investment. Like they actually had a federation that, while they weren't investing the same amount as they're investing in the men's, they still had a federation that invested more in them than, a lot of other countries. It's just like, it is crazy to think about.
It's so true. And I think about like in 1999, when the women's World Cup, I think about the story I told earlier about how I became an Arsenal fan. After the World Cup, I followed Dennis Bergkamp and figure out what club team he played for. After the Women's World Cup, everybody who watched that was obsessed with Brianna Scurry and Mia Hamm and Brandi Chastain and Michelle Akers and everybody else. But there was no established league to watch them in, or no video games you could play. If they had all those things, like I would have become become a fan of whatever women's soccer league if it had existed at the time. And so those sorts of things are finally starting to develop. And that's why I think, if they maintain that level of investment, it's just the future is going to be hopefully a lot brighter.
Yeah.
They did end up making a Mia Hamm soccer game that had like basically the national players. I do remember playing it.
Julia's like, I had it and I loved it.
I had it. I still play it. I will play it when we're done.
I play it every night before bed.
That would be fun. I was never good at like those types of video games, though. I don't know, like sports video games.
I played a lot of like backyard baseball, backyard soccer, on the computer. Yeah, Pablo. I loved Pablo so much. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But I also wasn't good at those games at all.
It was more about like the outfits and like getting to
and like how cute everyone was. Yeah.
95% of sports is outfits anyway. So.
Yeah. That's what we say.
That's what Benjamin Franklin said.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's one of his more famous quotes.
I mean, look at the guy and you can tell.
Totally.
You're right.
I mean, the guy, he invented bifocals. I mean, he was clearly a fashion icon.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
Don't wear two glasses.
Just one.
Yeah. Come on.
Benjamin Franklin, the original hipster.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, we would be remiss to have you on this podcast without asking you about your job and what you do, which is very fascinating. Do you want to tell us what your job is?
Yeah, so I work for a company called Sidex Sports here in Grand Rapids, and we design analytics software for baseball and hockey teams. And basically, we main area of business is Major League Baseball. So we sell to the software to Major League Baseball teams, and they use it to scout opponents, analyze, their players, use it for like training. And it started as like statistical analysis software and developed into like video software. So now teams will use it to, break down, do sort of data analysis, and then you link that to video and use that to, again, analyze their opponents, their teams. So again, for a long time, it was mostly just Major League Baseball. If you've seen Moneyball, it was the A's used the software in Moneyball to
That's cool.
sort of gain an advantage. And then it became more widespread, as these things usually do. Once one team gains an advantage, everybody else kind of plays copycat. And so it kind of spread across the league. And more recently got into hockey. And so about 15 years ago, we broke into the NHL. And then in the last 10 years or so, we moved into college baseball and also college softball. So we Yeah, we have about maybe 15 or 20 college softball teams that use our software. And so I have gone from knowing nothing about softball to like knowing a little bit about softball, and I actually got to University of Michigan's one of our customers, and so I got to go visit them and kind of see what they were doing, and they have an amazing kind of array of technology that they use for like ball tracking, video analysis, statistical analysis, and they put a lot of resources into it and a lot of kind of money and time into giving their players and coaches analysis tools.
That's very cool.
That's very cool. Yeah.
So you get to work with like in sports every day. That's really cool.
It is cool.
Not soccer, but
yeah. Well, and it's a funny thing because one thing that I've sort of noticed is that I grew up like playing both baseball and soccer, and I've become much more of a soccer fan. And I think with working in pro baseball, it's harder to be a fan in the same way because I grew up in Detroit, grew up loving the Tigers and hating the Yankees, and I still love the Tigers, but like the Yankees are one of our customers, so we work with them, and so well they pay us, but also like we know like they're people, and they're good people. I like them, so it's like hard to hate the Yankees in the way I used to, and so it's becomes less sort of it becomes more it's very fun, and a lot of times it's cool, but it changes the way you view it. So I've sort of a little bit glad that soccer has sort of stayed. I can hate Tottenham without knowing anybody who works for them. And I can pretend that they're all evil, and it's easier to have that cognitive dissonance.
It's much easier to be like, die Tottenham, when you don't know someone who works there and you've never spoken to someone. Yes,
it does. There is a lot of it reveals a lot about human psychology and how it's harder to hate up close, but that's a lesson I refuse to learn when it comes to sports.
For sure.
Meg Linehan,
it's amazing. No, go ahead.
Meg Linehan says that being a sports fan is torture, but you love it, or something like that. I don't know, something like that.
I hope that she said, or something like that.
Or something like that.
She must be an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, she's not very good with words. So
oh no, don't say it.
JK, obviously.
JK Meg.
JK Meg.
Did you guys just lose another listener?
Yeah.
Meg. And it was Meg.
Actually. She's our number one fan.
Imagine.
Oh, I do love Meg Linehan though.
But that is a great point though. Oh, and I do want to say on the record that I watched Moneyball last night to prep.
Ooh, girl.
To prepare about your brother's career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I gotta say, that was a great movie. I've been meaning to watch it since it came out, partly because of my, personal investment in it, and I just haven't. It was really good.
I think I've only seen it once, and it was because I read the book.
Oh yeah,
at least twice, and I cannot believe they made a good movie out of that book, just because it doesn't really lend itself to the, like, if you've ever read the book, it's like Michael Lewis kind of behind the scenes, story. It doesn't really lend itself to, a book about statistical analysis doesn't lend itself to a movie, but they do such a great job of it.
Oh,
and
it was so good. Yeah.
Yeah. And they put our software was in there for, I don't know, 10 seconds or something like that. And they just did some mock-up of it, never told us about it or anything like that. And
shit.
I think technically we could get royalties for it, but it's based on how long it's in the movie, and it would have come out to like $15 or something like that.
Oh man. It wasn't worth the legal fees.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh God, right. My question is so was it literally SideX software?
If you look at it, you see that Jonah Hill, when he's plotting like pitches in the strike zone during a game, he's using exactly, like, they've clearly mocked it up, but they've it's clearly our screen.
Fucking cool. I tell everybody when I tell everybody about your job, and my frame of reference is always, Moneyball, they use Sidex's software. But then I'm like, wait, once I saw it, I was like, wait, is it?
Like, did I lie to people for years?
Have I been making this up?
Again, if you stated it confidently, that's all that matters.
But the surprising thing is you have to understand that this company is like 5 people total.
Yes, that is
oh,
true.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah, we work in my boss's basement. It's not even in Grand Rapids. It's a suburb. It's in Wyoming, Michigan, which is a suburb of Grand Rapids. So it's and I've worked there for 10 years, and I've been working from home during the pandemic. But it's just we work in his basement. And we bring our dogs. So Harvey helps out whenever he can.
Okay. Yes, I will work there. I will work with you. I'll watch the dogs, whatever.
It has its benefits.
Oh,
we'll only pay you 75% of what we normally would, though, because you're a woman.
Yeah. That's what I expect, honestly.
We have to keep up with it. We have to keep up with industry standards.
There's standards for a reason. So
exactly.
Oh my gosh. Wait, and then my last question on that is like, I completely understand why a sport like baseball and softball, and I don't know anything about hockey, but I understand why hockey would be on there. Like, would it have the same ROI in like sports like soccer, or like what makes soccer and baseball so different? Why is baseball such like a statistic sport and soccer feels more like, I don't know, go do it?
Well, no, that's a really good question. And actually, with baseball, it's mostly because every event that happens is discrete. Like it's a pitcher versus a batter. There's no running clock time. It's just everything. There's a pitch. There's a ball in play. Everything is measurable, basically. And so you can analyze anything that happens on the field to whatever degree. Whereas even with hockey, it's a lot harder because there's 47 things going on at once and they all affect each other. Baseball, it's a series of like one-on-one duels, basically. So it's a pitcher versus a batter. And so you can say if there's, just to throw out an example, Justin Verlander versus, David Ortiz, you can see what the history is with Justin Verlander versus David Ortiz and use that. There's nothing else really affecting their one-on-one battles. And so you can say, all right, if David Ortiz is hitting, 300 off of Justin Verlander in his career, those two people are solely responsible for that matchup. With hockey, if somebody scores a goal, there's 10 different people on the ice that are influencing that event. So, the goal scorer gets credit, but how did it happen? Who set it up? Like, where was everybody in position? And so it's a lot harder to kind of isolate who's responsible for what. And in soccer, with there being 22 people on the field, it becomes even more complicated. And so that's why I kind of like that about soccer, because it kind of defies analysis. And there is the other answer is there is a lot more like sort of analytics that go into it now with soccer, and I generally avoid those because it makes it harder to be a fan if you're kind of treating it as a math equation. But basically, it's more of an art form, like the way the gameplay happens, because there's just a bunch of different people moving. It requires teamwork and kind of moving together and understanding each other. And if somebody scores, it's again, 22 different people are responsible for it in some regard. And so it's that makes it harder to analyze who gets credit for what.
Totally. Yeah. Cause in baseball, you could even be like, when this batter has 3 balls and no strikes, they tend to do this thing if they get this type of pitch. It's like in a way that you can't do that with soccer.
Exactly.
Because as much as baseball's a team sport, it's also like such an individual sport also.
Yes, that's exactly
so much
right.
Individual responsibility. That's really cool. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's almost an exact quote like that. That I think it's something like it's a individual sport disguised as a team sport or something like that. And it's kind of the irony is with baseball, it's so much harder for like one person can't really carry a team. Mike Trout's the best player in baseball, and his team sucks because the people around him aren't good enough. Whereas with basketball, it's like, it's a team sport. Everyone's, moving on the court, working with each other, but you can if you have the best player, you have a major, major advantage. So it's kind of, it's funny how it's a little bit paradoxical in how that works.
Totally.
Oh, that's I'm going to be thinking about that for a while.
I'm like watching Julia think about it.
See her wheels turning. Yeah. Like I can, Jordan, it's like that meme where like LeBron you can see it.
James.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. Fewer people.
Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
I think there's steam coming out of your ears, Jules.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so then, is Jonah Hill's character?
Is that you?
Know him?
You, yeah.
He is based off of somebody that I have met. He's based off a guy.
Julia's so happy.
For his autograph.
His name is Paul DiPodesta, and he's been a GM of somebody and didn't do very well. But he's still somewhere. Honestly, I think he might have. I might be botching this completely, but I think he transitioned into NFL. I think I might be mixing him up with somebody else, but he has sort of he was in and out of like baseball front offices, and for whatever reason they didn't use his real name in the movie. I don't know why. But that's who Jonah Hill was based off of. And cool. I met him at winter meetings like 2010, and I don't know. My boss knew him obviously from the Moneyball days, and so he just introduced me. But that was that. But cool. Hilarious story. But this is not related to anything. But Billy Beane, so he's the who Brad Pitt plays in Moneyball, and so winter meetings, which is that's in December. Usually in a normal year, they like all the front office people for baseball teams they hold a different city every year. Last year's like San Diego, year before was Vegas. This was a couple years ago, it was in Nashville, and basically all the teams, like again, front office guys just go and they have meetings for like free agency and working out like, just kind of deals for the next season and just stuff like that. So we always go down and just meet with all our customers and go through like off-season upgrades and things like that. But usually it's like meetings all day, and then at night people just go in the lobby and you just go and drink in the lobby. And so like they'll have, and if you watch on ESPN, they'll for whatever reason have like, panels talking during winter meetings, which is stupid because it's the most boring thing ever. But if you look in the background, it's just people standing around drinking in a hotel lobby. And so one time, this is in Nashville, and it was at the Grand Ole Opry Hotel, and we were out in the lobby with Billy Beane, who's actually an Arsenal fan, by the way. This is getting, totally, again, unrunrelated. But
so you are Billy Beane, is what you're telling me.
Well, no, I wish. But he was and he's unmistakable. He's like, I don't know, 6'4", 6'5", something like that, and like rail thin. And he comes out into, like, I saw him walk out of the lobby, and I was just standing out. I think
you are him.
No, yeah, right. We were waiting. For but there was like there was a bunch of people kind of like standing around outside, and it was a bunch of like old dudes, like and there was one guy who was like his name is Jack McKeon, who is like just a baseball old timer. He had like a cigar in his mouth, and we're like, oh my god, that's Jack McKeon, whatever. And it clearly there were people around him kind of fawning over him, and this tall thin guy walks by us, and nobody's paying any attention to him, and I'm like, that kind of looks like Billy Beane. And then somebody pulls up in like, a Nissan Sentra or something and leans their head out and is like, I have an Uber for William. And he's like, yep, that's me. And gets in the car and drives off.
Oh, you're like, that was Billy. That was Billy.
That was William B.
And nobody, it was me and the guy, my friend who lives in Nashville, who I was like there with, we both looked at each other. Nobody else noticed. And we were like, that was Billy Beane, wasn't it? It was.
Oh my God. That is so funny.
That was great.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's, in my opinion, a perfect story to end on. Unless anybody has some closing remarks, some closing thoughts and prayers, we can say grace at the end of it. We usually do.
We should hold hands and pray. I mean, I just thank you for coming and chatting with us. This has been such a nice conversation and very helpful. And
I thank you. I had so much fun. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure to chat with y'all.
Thank you. And thank you for like probably solving a lot of our group chats that happened where we're like, what is this? And everyone's
Ben. Or we would be like, okay, all right, we'll have to ask Ben about this.
Yeah.
No problem at all. I'm a big fan of the show. I was a little disappointed we didn't have one of our patented transitions from one topic to the next.
Do you want me to do one?
Yeah. Can we?
Transition us out.
I want to get my money's worth from a Mary Beth transition.
Okay. Are you ready? Julia, get your end recording button ready, okay?
Okay.
All right, everyone.
The button.
The show is over.